The Age of Enlightenment, The Power of Reason, B1 Level Listening Text, Introduction, The Dark Room. Welcome to this audio story. Imagine living in a world where you are not allowed to ask why. A world where the king has absolute power, and the church tells you exactly what to think. If you disagree, you are punished. For centuries, Europe lived in this kind of darkness. People believed in superstition, magic, and old traditions without questioning them. But in the late 1600s and 1700s, everything began to change. A group of thinkers, scientists, and writers decided to open the windows and let the light in. This period is called the Age of Enlightenment. It was a time when humanity discovered the ultimate superpower, human reason. Part 1. The Spark of Science. Before the Enlightenment, people thought that everything happened because of divine anger or magic. If there was a disease, it was a punishment from God. If there was a storm, it was because of bad luck. But then came the scientific revolution. Scientists like Isaac Newton proved that the universe follows logical, natural laws. Newton didn't just accept that an apple fell from a tree. He used math and reason to discover gravity. Enlightenment thinkers looked at these scientific discoveries and had a brilliant idea. If we can use reason to understand the laws of nature, we can also use reason to understand and improve human society, government, and education. They believed that the human mind was like a candle. It just needed to be lit to destroy the darkness of ignorance. Part 2. The Philosophers of Freedom. The heart of the Enlightenment was in France, especially in the cafes and salons of Paris. Here, brilliant thinkers called philosophes met to discuss new ideas. One of the most famous was Voltaire. Voltaire was a writer with a sharp wit. He spent his life fighting for freedom of speech and religion. He famously hated the corruption of the church and the monarchy. He believed that every person has a right to express their opinions, even if those opinions are unpopular. Another important thinker was John Locke from England. Locke wrote that every human being is born with natural rights. These rights are life, liberty, and property. Locke argued that the government's only job is to protect these rights. If a king or a government fails to protect your rights, the citizens have the right to change that government. This was a revolutionary idea because, at that time, most people believed that kings were chosen by God and could do no wrong. Part 3. The Separation of Powers. As the ideas of freedom grew, thinkers began to ask, how can we stop a leader from becoming a brutal dictator? A French philosopher named Montesquieu found the answer. Montesquieu studied different governments and realized that when one person has all the power, tyranny always follows. Therefore, he suggested a brilliant system, the separation of powers. He said that a government should be divided into 3 independent branches. The legislative branch to make the laws, the executive branch to enforce the laws, the judicial branch to interpret the laws and judge criminals. By dividing the power, each branch could check on the others, keeping the system fair and balanced. Today, almost every modern democracy in the world uses Montesquieu's system. Part 4. The Great Book of Knowledge. One of the greatest achievements of the Enlightenment was a massive project led by a man named Denis Diderot. He wanted to collect all human knowledge about science, art, philosophy, and technology, and put it into one giant set of books. This project was called the Encyclopedia. Diderot and his friends worked for more than 20 years to finish it. Why was this dangerous? Because the church and the king wanted to control information. They didn't want ordinary people reading about science, freedom, or alternative political systems. The government tried to ban the encyclopedia several times, but Diderot continued his work in secret. The encyclopedia changed the world because it democratized knowledge. For the first time, regular people could read, learn, and think for themselves without needing a priest or a politician to tell them what was true. Part 5. The Revolutions that Changed the World. The ideas of the Enlightenment did not stay in comfortable Parisian cafes. They crossed oceans and inspired real-world action. In 1776, the American colonies used John Locke's ideas about natural rights to rebel against the British king, creating the United States of America. A few years later, in 1789, the people of France rose up against their own king. The French Revolution used the Enlightenment slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity. They destroyed the old medieval system and declared that all citizens are born free and equal. The world would never be the same again. The age of absolute kings was ending, and the age of the citizen was beginning. Conclusion: The legacy of light. The age of enlightenment taught us that progress is possible. It proved that through education, science, and open discussion, humanity can eliminate poverty, ignorance, and cruelty. Of course, the Enlightenment was not perfect. Many thinkers of that time still ignored the rights of women and colonized people. But the tools they left behind, logic, human rights, and critical thinking, allowed future generations to fight for true equality. Today, whenever you ask a difficult question, whenever you read a book to learn something new, or whenever you voice your opinion freely, you are using the light of the Enlightenment. The battle between ignorance and education is still going on, and it is up to us to keep the candle burning.